Hello, Veda Howard here, Praise 1025, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are elated to be bringing to you Northside Hospital Mental Health Mondays, and today it's our pleasure to have with us Nikeisha Whatley, a clinical psychotherapist and the System Director of Behavioral Health Services at Northside Hospital. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Doing good. Glad to be here. Thank you so much for checking in with us. Nikeisha, it's been pretty amazing. As awful as the pandemic has been, I think it is really shedding light on mental health, and people are finally embracing it. So what have you seen at Northside regarding this and the pandemic?
Sure, definitely. We've definitely had a spike in requests for people reaching out for help. And that's been across the board for men and women. And what I can say is that one of the beauties of that is it hasn't been like a certain socioeconomic class or gender. It's been across the board. It's been, people are just realizing that they have tapped out and they're okay to reach out and get help. I do think that having services available on the telehealth platform has helped with that, because then you don't have to necessarily be inconvenienced by taking care of yourself. Listen to that, right?
Right,
But
right.
but you don't have to worry about fighting traffic. You don't have to worry about being seen at a behavioral health clinic or an agency, right? And so I think just the overall convenience of that has helped to increase. But the pandemic has forced us to sit with ourselves, be still, and look at the life that we have created.
How about
And
it?
right. And so slowing down, I think, has forced us to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and evaluate and reassess and take an inventory of our lives. And make a change, hopefully, for the
Beautiful.
better.
For the better. Yeah, so this has been a forced meeting in the mirror for everyone, like you said, to really look at everything. So now, what kind of suggestions can you give? Because I think oftentimes women in particular, and as you mentioned, you've seen an increase in people reaching out, men, women, different economic levels. People are realizing they are human first. What can we do to stop setting unrealistic expectations? I think a lot of it prior to a pandemic, we are setting ourselves up for stress. Do you have any tips you can tell the listeners on some things to kind of pull back and look at, like, that didn't make any sense? Why are you doing that to yourself?
No, I think that, we ourselves, we have to learn to keep it real with ourselves first. Right. And we're always like, I want to be around people that keep it real. I don't want to be around the fake people. Well, first, we need to keep it real with ourselves and stop committing to things that we know we're not going to do.
All
Right.
right.
And so I think some of that has to do with learning to be okay with saying no to certain things, not overcommitting ourselves to things that we know we're not going to find enjoyment in. And not being rude, but protecting our time, protecting our
Right.
peace and space. But then also, if you sign up for something that is unrealistic, you're never going to get to a place of accomplishment, because that prevents you from going to the next level, right? So I definitely think that you should set expectations or centered around things that you think are attainable, and that will give you a sense of self satisfaction, so that it reinforces the desire to go to the next level with the next thing. So we know ourselves better than anybody, and so we can't fool or run from us.
Right.
We just can't. And so I think that we just have to really watch what we say to ourselves, watch what we sign up for, watch where we put ourselves, what we put ourselves in,
Mm.
and be a true advocate for our own self-care in that way.
That sounds great. You're talking about setting some real boundaries that, as Nikeisha mentioned, that starts with having a real meeting with yourself in order to set those boundaries. Now, what about because we always hear self-care, Some, have tried to implement it. I think now, and because of the world going upside down, we realize exactly how important it is. But what are some ways we can make self-care a habit? And what I even had to realize, pandemic wise, some of the things I did try to implement for self-care, the pandemic, cross that off off the list. I'm going to go to the spa and I'll buy a series because that means I have to go, because for me that was a case where I'd put it off. But we weren't running up in spas during the pandemic. So what kind of tips do you have for people to make self-care a habit?
Sure, sure. I think that, it's definitely key to be able to carve out protected time
Mm.
for yourself. Self-care can feel like one more thing to do because it's so overused, right? The term. But I think that it comes down to having some designated time and space for you and no one else. And so how you utilize that, then of course talk about realistic expectations and things. How you utilize that needs to be geared towards something healthy and in line with your goals, whether that's personally, professionally, however, whatever that is for you. But I think you have to stick to having designated time devoted to you. And that may mean you do nothing. Like, just veg out. Like, it is okay to not have anything to do.
That's
Like,
good.
there's so much
Stop.
freedom in that. Just stop.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
stop. And so I think that helps to rebalance ourselves and just kind of reset. So to be creative, if you are a person that do feel like you have to find something to do, go outside, get some fresh air. That gives you a whole other level of perspective on things, because sometimes when you're in the house or in your office, it feels like the walls are closing in on you. And then you take a walk and you're like, okay, life is not as bad as I thought. I can do this for another
Right.
day. But then also just being okay to explore new interests, try new things,
Wow.
and realize you don't have to always spend money to do that.
How about it? That's wisdom there. It's funny you would say that. I had to call someone. Fridays are kind of crazy for me. Called someone. She was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I went for a walk this morning." I was like, "I should have been doing what you were doing." So you're correct. Sometimes it's not big things. It's pausing and doing some small, attainable things that will reap big benefits for us. So, Nikeisha, what are some signs? Because I think a lot of times people are so on the hamster wheel, you don't even realize that you are, I'll call it, abnormally stressed. Of course, life is going to bring certain levels of, but what are some signs that people can be like, okay, this isn't normal. We've gone beyond.
Yeah, sure, sure. I think that definitely some signs are you're more, we say short fused in our community, right? So more irritable, agitated at things that wouldn't typically get under your skin to the degree that they are.
Mm.
Lack of not being able to sleep or get proper rest. Feeling really fatigued, and worrying beyond the norm for you. So, like, say if you're feeling really anxious or worried about things that's going on for like 4 weeks or more, to
Wow.
where these types of things you can get down and sad, that's fine, and even cry, whatever. But when it's lasting longer than 4 weeks and beyond that, then I would say you definitely need to know that it's time to seek out some support. But then also, if it's impacting your functioning, not wanting to do the things that are priorities in your life, some things that are forcing you to avoid or isolate, reach out, get some help. And you know yourself better than anybody. And so, and I think that that's where we have to take a responsibility for our own health, emotional health, and be willing to push the envelope and step outside of our comfort zone.
That's up. Take the responsibility for our own emotional health. That's real good. Now, what about? I mean, Northside offers amazing resources. You are the system director of behavioral health services. What do you offer, and more importantly, how can listeners find these resources? Where can they find them? A website link or something like that?
Yeah, sure. If you go to northside.com, look under the behavioral health services, it will give you a breakout of all the services that we offer. Really comprehensive. We have outpatient services as well, where you can call 404-851-8960, and you can sign up for talk therapy, get your therapist, get you a psychiatrist for an evaluation. Doesn't mean you have to go on medication, but it's always good to have the perspective of both. And so we have, all kind of resources. You don't have to have mental health insurance to come. We got a lot of financial assistance programs in place to treat just about anybody. It's for 18 and over. So we do a lot for the community, and I feel so privileged to be able to lead the service line, because I know that we do give back to people that wouldn't typically be able to get really good help,
That's
So
awesome. So you're hearing, she's saying that you have access to help. So the only thing, it is there for you, but you have to act on it, which goes back to, as you mentioned, kind of being real with ourselves and taking responsibility for our own wholeness. And mental, emotional is all a part of it. Can you give that phone number again?
404-851-8960.
Well, Nikeisha Whatley, clinical psychotherapist with Northside Hospital, helping us on this Northside Mental Health Mondays as we acknowledge May as Mental Health Awareness Month on the air. I would always acknowledge it, but since the world went upside down, I will often give information and toll-free resources for people, because
Yeah,
this is a reality and we have to look at ourselves as a whole person.
absolutely. We
Thank
cannot.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Veda. I appreciate your time.
Likewise. Have a great day.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.